Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, today we're looking at the Joplin School District, and we're following up really on a visit I had last fall, I believe, with Interim Superintendent Dr. Norm Ritter is joining me again today. Thank you for coming back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
At that time, I think we visited about you being fairly new to the district, but yet you were undertaking a project of examining the district, coming up with a strategic plan. You've accomplished a lot in the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, we have. And Joplin's a neat community to work with, and able to find the data, and great response. Great response.
Well, I thought we'll start off today with some background, and then we'll start talking about what you found and how it came together. But you know, one of the first things I remember you saying is we need to take a look at what we have in our community.
That's correct, and that's pretty much what I've done. And what I found is that we have a hardworking community, very resilient community, who basically doesn't really know how powerful and exciting it really is. And so basically, I think over the years, over the last 50, 60 years, it basically has been really not understanding how it can really grow and prosper. And so I'm finding that, and I think the schools responded in the same way. But really, the schools started to really struggle a little bit starting in about 1985. And what we found there really, I think it aligns well with the federal government starting to take over, the state government starting to take over, so then really a lot of control. And when you have control, it puts fear in the system, and really it stops you from really wanting to get better.
So people sort of lost that local tie to their school district.
That's exactly right. I think that's what was starting to happen, and I think it's really very prevalent. And so the more we can find out what the community wants for its kids, and really find out what really the voice is to support children and education locally, and we do that, I think we're going to see some awesome results.
So the really truth is that we still have local school districts. You may have a lot of government programs, a lot of state influence, but it's still serving the children in this community. That
is correct, and I really think that you know, the empowerment and driving the decision making down to as close to the child as possible, as opposed to having it come from the top down. It needs to come from there and then move out, and seeing how we can support that. And really, Joplin really wants to do it that way. And that's what I have found is that Joplin really loves its teachers. I mean, loves its teachers and loves its principals, the site leaders. They really don't trust anything outside of that. And I don't blame them. And so that's really where we need to build that trust, but also we need to respond and be able to show how we're supporting that classroom teacher and the child in that classroom.
Let's talk a little bit about the process that you went through. I know you had some surveys involving constituents, whether they're voters or parents or the teachers, and gathering this type of information to reach these conclusions.
Yeah, we were very, very scientific. We used a method called human-centered design. Both I and Mr. Manus, who we brought in to help with this, actually went and randomly selected, and also maybe we had populations where we weren't visiting with certain populations that really weren't represented, so we had a key in on those. But really how that works is just a one-on-one conversation in their classroom, in their homes, having those conversations, and eventually through those conversations identifying, figuring out what their concerns are, really what they are excited about, and what really drives their thinking. And we did that with parents, we did that with community, we did that with frequent voters, we did that with teachers, we did that with principals. So with all of that information, we were able to pull together a really powerful database, understanding where the community is at, and then build some really strategic focus from there.
Did you find that some of those people perhaps may have been a little surprised? I mean, you're asking me?
Oh, yes.
They've never asked before?
Oh, yeah. Now, in some cases, they were really shocked and also really didn't want us in their home because they were embarrassed. And so we had to set up neutral places to meet and things like that. And quite often, when we set that up, they wouldn't show. And so those are the types of things you always face when you're doing that type of research. But you really, then if that type of person didn't show, then you find another one that's at that same type of person, and so that you actually do get that voice. And so I really feel very confident right now. I say we're within 2 percentage points of being very accurate as to where the community's at as far as understanding and where they would like to go with their kids.
And that's one key to whenever you do a survey or sampling, is to have good, valid information but you have to have the people you're talking to, the survey, who you're reaching, the right number of people to get those.
Yeah, so after we did the human-centered design, we developed the questions, we put together focus groups of each type, like teachers, frequent voters, and then also parents, and we actually sat down and then tested the questions with them to make sure that they are aligned with their level of thinking, and we screened some out that way. And then we actually did a phone survey with a frequent voter as well as the parents, and then we just completed a teacher survey, online teacher survey, and so we're anxious to get the results of that. But it just gives you that top-notch quality assurance that you know where they're coming from.
So this took you a number of months just to gather the data.
That's correct. That's correct. It took us about, I would say, 3 to 4 months, and then eventually, really in December we shared the data with the board, and then after we shared the data with the board, we went and took the data to the sites, and then as we were having conversation at the sites with all the teachers and administrators, we were also shaping the strategic plan and testing the strategic plan with them as well to kind of make sure that they are having part of that, but also making sure the language is understandable. And I have forms. I have a teacher form, I have a parent form, and I have a student form. And so I test everything, and we meet monthly, each of those. And probably the one that's most frank is the student form. They really say what's on their mind. And then the parent form is second. And the teachers were a little reserved, but now they're just wide open as well. So the forms are really good ways to measure, to check, to see, and to test language and thoughts.
Now you say students, are you talking about all ages, or
No,
high
just
school students, the ones who are getting ready, who have gone through the system, getting ready to graduate perhaps?
Really, it's where you can have that conversation. Yeah, I've had some with middle school and elementary, but it's primarily your high school students who, don't really, and it's freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, who really are, it took a while, took maybe 2 months, and now they're there and they're having a conversation, and we talked about it at an intersection, for instance, of a way to get in and out of the high school and whether we needed to build some barriers and stuff, and boy, did they give their feedback. And so it's really good.
So for even for the students, being asked to be able to give input is important for them.
Yeah, and boy, well, you need, what I found out a long time ago, the most intelligent person is the person that is closest to the problem.
They're using the system you're talking about.
That's correct.
Together.
That's correct.
So in February, then you were able to present to the board. You have this plan that's being developed now.
That's correct. And we basically have the plan, as I said, from day one. It's really a two-page document with 3 goals on it, and really it has a vision, a mission. It defines stakeholders. It gets into the three goals, and really and it's all measurable. That's the key. It's all measurable. But what's really critical about this is you need to find out what is the most needy part of the strategic plan, zero in on that, and then you build your action plan based on that. And so that's what we're starting to do right now.
Does that help you keep on track, that you're not overwhelmed, that you have so much material, you have to focus in that?
And well, whenever you're developing any kind of building a culture of improvement, if you don't zero in and do a good roots analysis and you try to do everything at once, you just don't get anything done. But when you do a roots analysis and you zero in and you identify that, and then you build your culture of improvement, your planning and your studying and your action around that, it's amazing how fast things take off then.
Well, I know we have, talking about culture of continuous improvement on the screen right now. This is part of what we're talking a little bit about. You're in developing. Explain to the viewers what this means when they see this.
Really, when you see that, it's just like a car engine. A really fine-tuned engine, really you get more efficiency out of it, but also you get high performance out of it. Really, those 3 things, the humble leadership, okay, the customer focus, in other words, constantly touching base with the customer, the stakeholder, to make sure that the stakeholder is we're getting the assurance from them that we're on track, and you have a really sharp strategic focus. You have that going all the time, and the feedback constantly, it's just like fuel that constantly feeds it. So then eventually you have a high-performing system.
So it's a living system, basically. I mean, it's always going through development and feedback.
Really, your own body, it has the same thing in it. It really does. And so if you don't have a humility about it, so that you don't really understand your body and you really are, your ego's getting in the way, you really are not going to be a high performer. You're not going to have a body that's in shape. And so basically it's the same principle. In fact, the systemic approach applies to anything, anywhere in nature. So.
Well, let's talk about the 5-year plan that you do have,
Sure.
that you've developed, and you've mentioned the vision, mission, and stakeholders for people who, I don't know if we have this available on the screen, but the vision itself. Tell me about how that was developed.
Really, when we were pulling together the data, and you could just feel that really it's more than just the students in the classroom, so we called it a community of learners, which is the adult and the students. And then the expectation, really the community didn't feel that we had high enough expectations, so that's part of the vision, to have high expectations. The word integrity really had a lot to do with trust, and probably the lowest rating of trust I've ever seen in my work with this, and I'm a turnaround person. And really the empowerment piece is driving that decision making, and really felt that was necessary, really a lot of site-based approach there, and then always looking for the opportunity, and that's what really, this is what the community, the the students, the teachers, everybody was telling us this is what they wanted for their vision. So that's what we did. We put language and words in there to do that.
Basically saying what they were saying.
Exactly.
Right. Which then leads you to your mission.
Right. And the mission to be able to do that, of course, is to build that culture of always wanting to get better. And the best way to do that, of course, is to establish that baseline of understanding. And that is true in the classroom for the teacher, and that's why we have a classroom model. And that's true for the site, and that's true for the whole district, okay? And so as long as you have a baseline and you zero in where the greatest need is, that's how you build that culture of improvement. So that's how we identified our goals for the strategic plan.
So then you have some basic goals that
Right.
you have basically looks like 3 main goals.
That's correct, right. And the first goal was really the key goal, and that is being able to have your child ready for the next level, okay?
Right.
So key components there is kindergarten readiness, and we really need to define that so all parents know what it means to have their child ready for kindergarten. So as soon as that child's born, I'd like to stand there right outside that door when they come out, give them that. Okay. So anyway, the kindergarten readiness is a key. Another one is 4th grade readiness. In other words, at the end of 3rd grade, because really going up to 3rd grade, you learn to read. From 3rd grade on, you read to learn. And so really the bottom line there is that they need to be at grade level. Now we've identified a couple things that are unique to Joplin with the readiness. One is the academic, okay, intellectually ready, which also includes behavior. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work around greeting, relationships, as well as following instructions, being able to listen. So those are key components that are going to be part of the readiness, and we're going to have that in place at each of those levels as well.
So that needs to start early for the students.
Right, and then also a wellness piece, physical wellness. So physical wellness, behavior, and intellectual. So really, it's really a whole child readiness that we're going to have in place. And so the parents and the teachers know what it's going to look like for a child to be hit, what their readiness targets are going to be for the end of 3rd grade. So we have 4th, we have 6th, we have 9th, and then we have college and career readiness, which is going to be far more rigorous than graduation.
Right, so as they're ready to take that step after high school, they
That's
take
correct.
steps along. And you keep using the word parents, so really it sounds like it is indeed a teamwork effect. The schools and the parents working together.
Oh yes, and to me, in all my years of education, the parents have been kind of left out, but also I think they choose to step back because the system didn't invite them, but also I don't think they feel themselves learning. And so in this type of system, the parents are going to have to learn with the child.
So they're learning about education today. It's not the same as when they went to school.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is they're going to learn more about behavior than they are academics.
So those children need to be prepared. And then just looking at some of your basic, here's Joplin Eagles will greet one another, follow instructions, get along, participate. Things that we say, well, that should be good behavior to begin with.
That's correct. And really what's interesting is that's not in place. And really that calls for a lack of respect, that calls for a level of bullying, and that calls for really inappropriate relationships, sexual relationships. It could also get into language. And so really when you have a child that's a young adult that's really ready for that and they're college and career ready, everybody wants to hire you. Okay, so it's more about the behavior than it is the academic, but the academic is a critical piece. The academic is pretty automatic as far as a child's wanting to learn, and a great appetite once their behavior's in place.
So that's probably something you heard from the business leaders in the community saying, we hire people who have these skills.
Well, to be honest with you, I met with the business leaders. There's about 20 of them there last Wednesday and went over this with them, and the behavior pieces was the most key thing for them. And they themselves found that their own staff needs to work on this.
So no matter what age you are, you still need to
that's correct. That's correct.
Goal number 2 says learner support.
Now, the main thing there, of course, is to make sure that where the decision making is occurring, and that includes curriculum and everything is happening at that grade, at the classroom. And so, as long as they have the support, behavior support, maybe it's classroom size, maybe it's the resources, all that needs to be there to be able to support that teacher and the student, the learner, both the adult and child learner, student learner in that classroom, and that's what this is really all about. So we have a couple key things that were concerned for us in Joplin. One was basically we were very limited as far as collecting the satisfaction data, both the student satisfaction as well as teacher satisfaction as parents. So we need to do that. But the other thing that's really a key target for us is teacher retention. And we have the lowest teacher retention in the area, and probably one of the lowest in the state, and that's not very good. And so therefore you're training people and they're going away. And so ultimately it could be not as costly. Of course, you're saving money, but you're not. You're really spending more money because you always have to do more training. So teacher retention is another issue, and that's part of the learning support.
So teacher retention also leading to quality education for the children as well, more experienced teachers in the classroom.
That's correct. And really, yeah, it does come down to the talent of the teacher, but also it comes down to the ability to understand where that learner is. In fact, the group think is really a very important thing. In other words, everybody needs to know each other really well to be able to have that level of trust, to be able to have that collaboration. So that's when the real key learning occurs in the classroom as well as in the adult setting, is the trust and the ability to have that critical conversation around items or issues, projects.
Looking at the challenge of teacher retention led you right to how can we, this is one of the goals, and we tie into that.
Yes, and salary is part of that conversation too, so we're going to have to do something with that.
And then goal number 3, effective and efficient.
No, our community, as all most communities, it's all about making sure you're effective and efficient. You're not, and really, when you have a high-performing system, as even your own body, you have waste. And so you basically need to be able to identify that waste. And as you're identifying the waste, it gives the system an opportunity to improve because they're not having to deal with the waste. And so it's really critical. Now, what's another critical piece when you're looking at this is the efficiency and effectiveness. It's a balance. You can be too efficient and not be effective. So you got to be careful. And so really the key component in this one is really, all of those are really key, but the learner engagement and management of our time, current time in the classroom and in the building needs to be looked at and fine-tuned, okay? Another one is that basically, as you can see, if the students are struggling with their physical needs, their emotional needs, or their behavior needs, there's a lot of waste there because they're basically having to take care of their what I would call basic needs, and if that's not taken care of, you're wasting your time in the classroom. You
can't learn if you're hungry or if you're having those challenges emotionally.
And so that's why we need to identify those, and we need to be able to, so that's part of your learner support. So you're going to see these goals integrate. They're all kind of cross over with each other, but that's going to be a key component there as well.
And something I don't know if the viewers noticed as we were showing these, you also have specific evaluation methods and tools to say, are we reaching these goals?
That's correct. All this is measurable, and so that's where when you do an action plan, you zero in on what the greatest need is, and then you make sure that you establish that baseline of understanding, then you build, and then you have to report out the progress. Okay, right. So when you're reporting out the progress, you're looking at two things. You're looking at the process. Is the process effective and efficient? Okay, and then you're looking at performance. And so when you're looking at a classroom, for instance, and you're doing, the teacher's doing the planning and they're actually doing the strategies, they need to do the study to see if it's working or not. And what happens a lot of times in the classroom is they're doing the planning, doing strategy, but they're not steady and adjusting their action. And so that's what happens. And that happens in business a lot too. So as an examiner, that's what I am, when you go into a business, you're checking the front lines, and if you're seeing that there is no cycle of improvement, you just well walk out because that business isn't going to be around very long.
Lifelong learning is important no matter what you're doing.
That's exactly right. By the way, you know the brain, as soon as it's conceived to the point its death dies, if it's not getting better every day, eventually the body will react and die because the brain isn't getting any better or any stronger. And so that's the human brain compared to the animal brain. So I think that continuous improvement really nurtures and feeds into that.
So this tying into the classroom like you were discussing, it's also the teachers, the people who are working hands-on with the students assessing, are we reaching our goals? Are our students actually coming out of this class better than when they came in?
That's true. Now the intelligence around that, of course, is the actual intelligence of the children in that classroom keeping their own portfolios and charting that. But the other part of it is when you have multi-grades in that site, then you have teachers collaborating and having conversations, looking at the data as well. And that's where you get really a high level of acuity around that. And I think that's even better than anybody can do as far as outside the classroom. So that acuity around the data and the processes and strategies that they could come up with to support that, and that's where your flexibility is really critical. And then the students, what's really amazing is when the students really get into the system and buy into the system, the teacher steps back and the students take over, and it's basically a student-driven curriculum. And I'm sure that's kind of what you have here right now, by the way.
People are learning by doing.
Yeah, they're learning by doing, but also they start taking charge. And so that's really exciting when that happens.
So that's also, you feel that it develops those skills that they will need for future success.
That is correct.
Careers,
that's correct.
So you also have developed the different plans. You have classroom leadership models that tie
That's
into
correct.
this.
That's
And,
correct.
How do we just take these ideas and put them into motion?
Right.
Application.
That's correct. And the classroom leadership model basically has a the district vision. You have the strategic plan in front of you, and then what you have is a mission for the classroom, and of course the students work with you in developing that. And then eventually you have your intentions are very clear and your standards are very clear. So in other words, what needs to be learned, that's part of your readiness.
Right.
So that's clear. And then you plug in your plan, do, study, act. Your real targeting as far as what behaviors need to be dealt with, what kind of strategies can best match the behaviors as well as the academic needs, etc. So that's what the planning is, then the doing is the strategies, and then the study, is it working or not? And when you're really good at this, and you saw the driving triad, when you're really good at this, you can adjust within 5 minutes because of recognizing that certain group of students are not grabbing it, so you adjust in your mind to be able to adjust your strategy. So that's how this flywheel, this plan, do, study, act, is really taken off. When you're really good at it, it's like a flywheel; it just takes off. And so ultimately, then it's a constant culture of improving, but you got to have a solid base, otherwise it'll never get traction.
So the teachers, the people who are going to be hands-on working on these programs, really need to have that understanding of their role in developing.
The best way I introduce this is I have a male teacher and a female teacher stand in front of about 50 teachers, and I'll say, what is the same about these people? And they start identifying eyes, heart. They hope they have hearts, and then kidneys, etc. And I says, okay, so they have the same system. Everybody agrees. Now, do they have the same needs? No way. And then I ask them, okay, so from Thanksgiving to Christmas, everybody in America averages a gain of 7 pounds. So the male here, is he going to use the same diet as the female? And they said, no. Well, I said, okay, so you're pretty smart. However, the media tries to convince you that the same approach is going to work for both of them. Okay, but in the male's case, it's less carbs. Okay, in the female's case, it's less sugar, usually. But anyway, so there's an example. So it's the same thing is true for classrooms. You still have the same system, okay? However, the needs are different, so therefore you need to use different strategies, and you use different studies to make sure that the system is working and your triad is really moving really hard and fast.
Great. So do you see a lot of resources available then for teachers and the staff and the schools to be able to implement, and assess what they have?
Well, basically what happens here is that you're going to find that the resources aren't needed nearly as much. You don't need near the technology, you don't need near the textbooks, because basically you have a culture of human dynamic that's really going to be enriching, because it's a heavy dialogue that's occurring there and a collaboration that's occurring there that gives you your learning, and that's really your curriculum. But until we get to that point, yes, you need your technology, you need your textbooks, you need your pen and pencil, you need all those types of things to be able to get it to where it's really running well.
Of course, when we look at education and we think about the children that may be in kindergarten now, and 12 years down the road, the world is changing so fast, education needing to keep up with their needs and the community needs. And we're going to be a different community 12 years from the road.
Yeah, and that's why this system was true 200, 300 years ago, okay? And it's true today. So the system itself will not change, okay? However, the strategies, the planning, the standards, all those things will change, but the system will never change, because the human body and the human mind will never change. The brain will be the same. And so as even robots, okay, it makes no difference. It's still the same type of system that works. And so I really find that this is the resilience of any kind of change. If you don't have this in place, it's very hard to change. But if this is in place, change is automatic.
So change will come as part of this program.
Oh yeah, there's no question. If it doesn't, then the system's not working.
So where do we go from here? You've had the meeting with the school board. People might, well, what phase are we in? What's happening with the district?
Well, right now we're testing the strategic plan. Like I said, I met with the forums.
Right.
I met with the student, parent, teacher. The board approved the first reading. I met with the leaders, business leaders, looking for different venues to have conversations. Then eventually we come back to the board and we approve it. Now, I am also working directly with the site leaders, as well as direct reports in human resources and things like that. Okay. And basically training them on how to do the triad, to really work the system, to help to have the system work for you. So I'm doing a lot of direct training with that. But the actual strategic plan, then we as a system are going to need to identify, and I started doing that with the teachers and the parents last night, and the teachers were very clear that they want goal number 1.2.2. That's their number one focus, okay? Whereas the parents, it was kind of interesting, the parents, had about 25 parents, and the parents are pretty much all over the board. They wanted effective and efficient. One group did. One group wanted the 1.1.1, the readiness, and then one group wanted the behavior, but a little more wanted behavior as well, but not nearly as dominant as the teachers.
The teachers are saying we want the behavior supporting communication and education.
The students, no question, wanted behavior. They felt, they wished they would have learned this way back in kindergarten. Because they really, as they look at their own behaviors and as they look at their peers, they wish they'd had this. And so to me, the students really screamed that they wanted the behavior focus.
So perhaps more emphasis on that early childhood education.
Yeah. Well, you'll see in goal 3, it's in goal 3 where it says effective use, where did I say that early in the, did I say that in one point? Where is it at?
1.13, students earning qualifying scores?
No, it's under, here it is, 2.1.2. Okay, students' needs are met through early intervention. Okay, so the earlier we can intervene with them, that's where I really believe that if we can get students at grade level by 3rd grade, everything's going to be a lot easier. But if they're not up to grade by 3rd grade, then we're really going to struggle.
They're running behind the whole time they're going through school.
Yeah, so what's going to happen, I predict, is that the readiness is so clear, okay, and then the strategies as to help kids catch up is going to be basically, how are we going to do this? Before or after school? Is it going to be Saturday? Is it going to be, are we going to need a different calendar? See, so it's interesting how we get really creative, rooted in where the kids are at. And that's what this does. This clear focus on this strategic plan helps us identify how flexible we're going to need to be able to get these kids up to grade level.
And really your focus is on what can we do for the students in the Joplin School District.
That's exactly right. That's the bottom line.
So if people have questions, they've been watching today, they can go to the Joplin School website. You have this information posted.
That's correct. All of this is there.
And if you're obviously having meetings and meeting with the different people who are involved, so we'll hear more about this development as we go along as well.
And if anybody wants me to come to their church, or any kind of church function or any kind of community function, a PTO, it doesn't make any difference. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with them to help them understand what the data is, but also to help them understand where we're going to hope to be in 5 years.
Great. So 5 years, the vision for Joplin schools.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Dr. Ritter, I'd like to thank you very much for being with us today on the program, sharing this information.
Well, thank you for having me. I always enjoy these conversations.
You're welcome.
You do good work.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the viewers for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.